Hello, Ed Fam. Happy Saturday to you. We're looking back at some information regarding the U.S. Department of Education and how the Trump administration on yesterday announced it will pull all federal education funding from Maine after state officials said they would not comply with demands from the administration to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. A dramatic escalation that could slash millions in federal funding from K-12 schools in the state of Maine. The move marks a major retaliatory step forward in how the administration is willing to go to foresee the state governments adhere to executive orders signed by the president. Last month, the U.S. Department of Education began an investigation into a claim that Maine Department of Education was in violation of Title IX, a civil rights law that prohibits sex discrimination in education programs that receives federal assistance. By allowing a trans athlete to participate in women's sports, this allegation came as a surprise to the U.S. Department of Education. However, the Department of Education's findings and proposed resolution agreement demonstrate to the Maine Department of Education and any other entity receiving federal funding that the Trump administration will not tolerate unlawful discrimination against girls and women, the federal agency said in a news release last month. In Friday's letter to the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, Sarah Forster, the state assistant attorney general, said Maine would not sign the resolution agreement, writing that the state and the federal government were at an impasse. Nothing in Title IX or its implementing regulations prohibits schools from allowing transgender girls and women to participate on the girls' and women's sports team, Forster wrote in her communication. Your letters to date do not cite a single case that so holds. To the contrary, various federal courts have held that Title IX or the Equal Protection Clause require schools to allow such participation, she added. The move prompted a swift response from the Trump administration's Department of Education, which promptly said it would cut all federal funding to Maine and refer its investigation to the state education agency and the Justice Department for further enforcement and action. The Maine Department of Education will now have to defend its discriminatory practices before a department administration law judge in a federal court against the Justice Department. Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights Craig Traynor said in a news release. Deborah Haynes, a spokesperson for Maine Attorney General Aaron Frey, declined to comment on the response from the agency officials. The White House also did not respond when a request was sent to them for comment. On February 5th, President Donald Trump signed an executive order banning transgender athletes from women's sports and denying federal funding for schools that allow that participation. That led to a heated exchange at the National Governors Association meeting on February 21st. At the event, Trump singled out Maine's governor, Janet Mills, and asked whether her state would comply with the order, to which she replied, Maine will follow state and federal law. Then Trump threatened to cut off funding to the state. See you in court, Mills quipped. Since that brief interaction, the New England state has been attacked by Trump and subjected to an array of unusual probes and arbitrary reversals of funding. This included the Federal Education Department starting a direct investigation into the state's Title IX compliance immediately after that spat. In an announcement, the U.S. Department cited a Maine high school that said it was continuing to allow one male student to compete in girls' categories. Greeley High School, home of transgender student whose win at a track meet made waves in conservative media, is now the center of debate over the administration's interpretation of Title IX and perceived threats about transgender participation in women's sports. According to a study by UCLA School of Law, the Williams Institute, less than 1% of the U.S. population over the age of 13 identifies as transgender. The number of transgender youths participating in high school sports, the Institute estimates, is similarly small. Mills said that the inclusion of transgender athletes in schools is protected under the Maine Human Rights Act. In 2021, the law was amended to protect against any discrimination on the basis of gender identity. Trainer, in the statement Friday, taunted Mills and her previous remarks to Trump. Governor Mills would have done well to adhere to the wisdom embedded in the old idiom, "Be careful of what you wish for," he said. Now she will see the Trump administration in court. Since Trump has returned to office, his administration has relentlessly rolled back the transgender rights, carrying out a 2024 campaign promise that he was going to end gender ideology, ban trans people from serving in the military, and restrict transgender health care access for minors. U.S. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins sent a letter this month to Mills saying the agency would freeze in response to the state's alleged failure to comply with Title IX requirements. A federal judge in Maine, however, blocked that freeze and ordered the Agriculture Department to unfreeze that funding that it had pulled from Maine schools, according to a court document. Other states caught in the cultural war have faced similar threats of having funds slashed over this administration's targeting of transgender people. In Illinois, a conservative nonprofit filed a complaint with the Justice Department asking the agency to launch a criminal investigation into a school district it accused of forcing middle school students to change into gym clothes in front of a transgender student. This situation, y'all, is truly getting out of hand, and it makes me ask, is this a fight we want to even make? It's a no-win situation, actually, for the students and for the federal government. I've heard kids often say, you're worried about the wrong thing. Is this an instance of that? Could it be? I'm concerned. I'm sure you are too.